Hey everyone, so quick GN Extras thing. If you remember the ASUS Hero motherboard, Z690 boards, when they launched, had this thing where they would sometimes blow up, catch on fire. There's some images on Reddit, I think, where users experienced this. And so this started, I have a work log over here before we moved it digital. This started January 10th, this project, actually before that, but we started doing testing January 10th. And this is where we have a talk we need to have with the audience. So as we grow and our testing capacity grows, especially in the new location, we now have this really cool ability to set long-term tests up like this one to try and provoke a failure from a component that people are saying is failing online, but might not be something easy to cause. So if it's just like the capacitor blows up at some point indeterminately, there's not really a good way to test that if you're limited on space because you don't know how long it's going to be sitting there. We set this up. If we get a zoomed out shot of just kind of this room in general, we pulled two tables to the middle of the room. They're starting to drive me crazy, so we're going to break it down now. And we basically set it up for these ASUS motherboards. These, at the time this was all happening, these were difficult to get. I had to buy two of them from our viewers. I think I spent something like $1,400 or $1,500 between the boards and the shipping, insurance, and everything else, and nothing ever happened with it. So basically, as we grow and try to test things where it's like this big, sudden, instant controversy, but it's going to take a while to create a failure, there are going to be times like this where we test it, and even though the capacitor is on backwards, as was suggested originally by ASUS, it still never failed. It might fail at some point. It might fail under conditions we didn't particularly recreate, but at some point it's just like, okay, well, this story's done, and we're not getting what we thought we would get out of it, and there's not really now, 4 or 5 months later, there's no point in making a 10-minute video on the main channel being like, it didn't fail. I don't know, like, what do you do with that? No one's gonna watch it. The topic's old. ASUS resolved the issue. So it's kind of like, where do you go? And I don't want to just like let all the work die, because we did do a lot of work on this. So I was going to tell you all, we'll do this on GN Extras from now on. Whenever we have a test where, and this is happening more frequently now, it's not great, but there's not much I can do about it because computers are hard and you can't always predict what's going to happen. So whenever we have a test now where we put in all this work and we don't get a result that is really publishable, at least on the main channel, we will at least recap it and just throw it here so that you kind of know, okay, so they worked on it and maybe it's not as big a deal or whatever. So this particular board came from a viewer who signed it as Joe Mo. This motherboard has been used 24/7, mining gaming for 2 weeks, no issues with the high OC. Please blow this thing up. So we were never able to blow it up, and we did a lot of things trying. First of all, we kept originally a physical, but then a digital running log. This is the workload it was running. So Patrick would come in every couple days. He would log, okay, we're running Prime 95 and memory. We have a bunch of fans and RGB devices connected. We're running memtest, fans, RGB. He was probing the left and the right side of the capacitor for, I believe, voltage or maybe resistance on one side, but that's voltage. So against 5 volts expectation. So the whole story, if you didn't know it, is that basically this capacitor up here was expected to be on backwards, and so I think a MOSFET on one user board on Reddit blew up. I think the capacitor blew up on another one. We even glued thermocouples to the motherboard. We have a few of these. We glued we glued thermocouples to the motherboard. We didn't glue motherboards to the thermocouples. And did a lot of work, and basically all for nothing, other than to say, this is going to happen sometimes. Let me tell you some of the other stuff we did. So we also, this is Stone's notes. Oh my gosh, this is from December 30th. Holy crap. It's happening more and more. We have a content piece we start, and we've never had the capacity to start big long-term projects like this. But like I said, sometimes they're just not going to pan out because the component doesn't behave the way that everyone's saying online it will. So anyway, Stone took notes here. PCB revision models noted. He said voltage check was done on Wednesday. The cap is in fact reversed, he wrote. He said we did voltage drop tests at the MOSFETs. He talked about doing overvolting We did output voltage monitoring to see if the leakage was increasing over time. We switched workloads constantly. We loaded up USB networking, audio, all of the ICs basically on the board to see if it was some kind of 5-volt thing and see if they had an impact on it. This was thermal testing. We didn't see the thermals move at all on the cap or the surrounding MOSFETs. It just didn't really change. We changed the load a lot. Didn't seem to have much impact. We overvolted the RAM. We did USB loading. We used USB hubs. We used phones, phone charging off the motherboard, that is. We used fans. We used battery packs. We basically plugged in every possible chargeable device into every USB port on this motherboard to try and heat the thing up. Those didn't impact it. The overvolting, overclocking didn't impact it. And we set up a resistor to do some additional tests. Anyway, there's a lot of work. In terms of staff hours, probably a couple grand, I don't know. And nothing happened. So we did this for 2 boards. We also have one of these in that system over there that Andrew's working on, and it also has not blown up. So I guess what I'm saying is I want to clean these tables off now and move them back to where they were. So this content's done. We're not doing any more endurance testing on the ASUS motherboards. The issue's been long resolved. It doesn't matter anymore. But we did at least want to let you know that, hey, we tried with the staff hours and the motherboard costs and everything else. We tried hard and put a lot of money into it. And that's fine. You know, sometimes it doesn't work out and you move on to something else because it just doesn't make sense to keep trying to make this thing blow up. So why the cap can be backwards here and there's no problem ever, I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer, so I'm not really sure the details of it. But anyway, it seems like a non-issue more or less. And technically, we could send these boards in under warranty, and ASUS would probably send it back with the cap flipped, or we could do it ourselves. But end of the day, the content hit a dead end, and that's it. So whenever this happens now, and we do something like endurance testing, or we set something up and kind of leave it in a corner, and there's no result to speak of, then it doesn't make sense to talk about it on the main channel. I think I talked about this in a hardware news once or twice, so I wanted to at least provide a conclusion here. But that's what we'll do. We'll either mention it in hardware news or we'll just put it on this channel. So you at least know we did the work, but just not much, not that exciting or interesting. And by the way, we had a camera on a tripod here. That was the other thing. It was eating camera equipment. On a tripod pointed at the board for a couple months, recording continuously. It killed an SSD because it had written to it so much. And that was to capture it in case it did go up in flames. But alas, it did not. I think this happened with a power supply as well. I forget which one. But a lot of people at one point were requesting a specific power supply test. We tried it, did a lot. We couldn't make it blow up. And I was like, okay, well, there's no video out of this, so I guess we'll just move on. Which again is fine. That's like the sort of cost of doing business. It's part of the business. It's we'll get more hits than misses. So I'm certainly happy to keep doing that. But it just sort of sucks to not at least tell everyone what happened or didn't happen with it. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm happy to have my tables back. Subscribe to this channel for more updates and behind the scenes stuff. And you can go to patreon.com/gamersnexus for some additional behind the scenes bonus videos. We'll see you